Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's lecture. So today we are continuing our lecture with section 5 of the lecture material. So in this chapter 5, we are going to look at corporate social responsibility. Corporate social responsibility. At the end of this learning, at the end of this program, I expect you to understand what corporate social responsibility is. You should be able to explain why a company will consider implementing corporate social responsibility programs. You should also be able to define corporate governance. You should be able to also explain corporate governance compliance requirements. You should be able to define the concept of sustainable development. You should be also able to explain the stakeholders of a company and give reasons why companies should engage with the stakeholders. You should also be able to describe how a company would go about engaging with its stakeholders. And with that, the outline for today's presentation focuses on the 4 main concepts, basically on the main concept of corporate social responsibility, which is basically also linked to corporate governance. Then we'll look at sustainable development and stakeholder engagements. Okay, so once we are trying to understand what corporate social responsibility is, we should be made aware that as a business entity, you are also entitled to issues that occur. Basically, as we discussed earlier, the main motive of a business enterprise is to make profit. But at the expense of making profit, you should not also try to overlook the people that matters to the company. So as a business entity, you should know your roles in society, your responsibility in society, and how you can make impact in society. So when we talk about corporate social responsibility, we are basically relating the concept of how the company, impact on its society and impact on its people, its customers, and goes beyond that. So as a business entity, we should know that though government has a role in terms of government needs to provide many infrastructure development, but all the burden cannot be left on government. And so as a business, you have to also come in to make sure that if you want your business to survive, then you should make sure that people in or the society, the community in which your business is also benefit from your business. It's not about just the community benefiting, but you also undertaking certain responsibilities that will not be harmful to the community just because you want to make profit. You engage in activities that are harmful to the environment. So you pollute the environment, you destroy land, because you want to undertake maybe what we call the mining, you then tend to destroy the land. So as a business entity and as a business concept, you should know that you do not survive on your own, and you need a community to survive, you need environment to survive. So you should be able to concern with things that occurs, things that happen in the environment, especially because some businesses that are not existing today is because of the fact that many of the communities in which they found themselves not just did not benefit, but they became harmful to the survival of the people in the community and therefore needed to be closed down, or people started not to patronize their commodities, so they had to close down. So this is basically the idea in which we are trying to discuss today, your responsible behavior towards the people you do businesses with. So as we continue and we're trying to understand what a corporate social responsibility is, what we should know is that if you open a business, the business, just like a citizen, so as an individual, as a citizen, you have a right to the society in terms of making sure that you protect your environment and not just making sure that you live well, but you protect others as well. So that is what business also does. Business is also a form of a citizen and enjoys certain rights and responsibility. So one interesting thing about corporate social responsibility in terms of the world today is that people are so concerned. People want to know what companies are doing. And companies will also want to know, concern themselves with varieties of issues that are going on in the world today, in the issues of inequality, in the issues of globalized trade, social tension, climate change. Yes, we can talk about even Bill Gates because of his, the amount he's able to accumulate. He's now concerned about climate change because he sees the need that before his business could thrive, then there's a need for him also to invest. So there's a lot of budget from his finance that he's contributing to and society development. Even to come to this recent age of COVID, you realize that MTN has announced to purchase some of the vaccines for some African countries. These are people who are concerned with issues of the environment because they believe that if the environment is safe, their companies can thrive. And it's not just about them focusing on profit maximizing only, but also making sure that they make some benefits to the people they actually work with. So it makes the whole environment, a healthy environment is needed for both companies to grow. So it's not just the company that grows on its own, but with a healthy environment, a good human surrounding, companies can thrive and do well. With all this background discussion on corporate social responsibility, we should know that there are certain differences in terms of the meaning, but the basic meaning is the company's responses. So a corporate social responsibility basically deals with how business organizations can meet essential needs without dishonoring community needs or community values. So you can engage in your business activity without undermining or without dishonoring community values. And however, in terms of this differences in the definition of corporate social responsibility, we can basically group them under three different meaning or umbrella. So companies have a responsibility for their impact on society and the natural environment. This is one of the, one aspect of the definition of in terms of the corporate social responsibility. So in terms of this responsibility, it may extend beyond the legal compliance or the liabilities of individuals. In terms of this responsibility, it goes beyond legal compliance and liability of individuals. Just because we are asking a company to be responsible for its impact on society, sometimes there are certain legal laws that ask companies actually to certain amount of responsibility to the society. However, when the company goes beyond just the laws that is being given to this company, but a company can itself take certain responsibility without, not because there's a law that is asking you to, but it goes beyond just the law asking you to, but you yourself having that initiative that why don't I just give back to society? So we've seen a whole lot of companies that build schools, build hospitals just to support the community in which they live in, just to make communities thrive. So another important aspect in terms of the definition of the corporate social responsibility is companies have the responsibility for the behavior of others with whom they do business. So the company has a responsibility of the behavior of others with whom they do business with. So if you are doing a business with somebody and you don't consider or try to know whether the person is doing well, because the better the people that you do business with are, the better they can also have the ability to get back to your business and make sure that your business stays. So you should be concerned with the welfare, with the behavior, with the attitude of how others that you do business with, how are they? So that you can make sure that your responsibility attitude towards them can have that kind of goodwill for you, so that they can always come back to do business with you. We can also talk about companies need to manage their relationship with wider society. So you have to manage your relationship with the wider society? How do you improve the society? How do you make sure that the society, you are in the good books of society? People don't tend to point their fingers at you, is that you are the one polluting the air water. You are the one causing polluting the air, which is causing harm to their health. So with that relationship with the wider society, that is indeed, so all these three concepts or these three definitions are basically is what we consider as social corporate social responsibility. If you look into the King third report in terms of the definition of corporate responsibility. So for this definition, he did not limit him aspect in terms of the definition for corporate responsibility. In the report by King Ted, he did not limit his definition of that corporate responsibility to that of social responsibility. In terms of his paper, he defined corporate responsibility as the responsibility of a company for the impact of its decisions and activities on society and the environment through transparent and ethical behavior. So in that paper, basically, that's how it defined what a corporate responsibility is. It did not just limit itself with the social responsibility. So it contributes to societal development, including health, including the welfare of society. In terms of this definition, in terms of the definition of corporate responsibility, it also takes into consideration the legitimate interests and expectations of stakeholders. It also in compliance with the law and consistent with internal norms. It also considers the integrated throughout the company, the integration throughout the company and practice in each relationship. So per all these major three definitions, we can also look at the definition for in terms of the corporate responsibility, not the corporate social responsibility. So in terms of the corporate responsibility, which is with that under that with the social responsibility comes under by King, we have talked about four key things here. That is contribute societal development, including the health and the welfare of the society, take into consideration take into account the legitimate interest and expectation of the stakeholders, is in compliance with applicable laws and consistent with international norms and behavior, and is integrated throughout the company and the practice in the relationship. Okay, so we continue with our discussion on corporate social responsibility. And this time around too, we are continuing. We are going to hear terms in which, if you read certain literatures, they basically use them interchangeably. They sometimes use we call corporate citizenship, corporate social investment, and corporate social responsibility. Most of these three concepts are basically used interchangeably. However, let's first of all take the corporate citizenship and corporate social responsibility. Corporate social responsibility here, though both of them focus on the company's conduct in or attitude in the environment, or companies how the company conducts its business in the environment. Corporate social responsibility basically focus on the responsibility nature of a company. With the corporate citizenship or corporate citizenship, yes, that side only focus on not just the responsibility, but also on the rights of the company. So when you talk of the rights of the company, last time, the first and second lecture, in third lecture, we talk about this juristic person. When the person is, a company is being treated as an individual or some entity on its own, it has its rights. So that company has its own rights. So that and that right of that company is that it can choose to produce what it wants. It can choose to undertake the business or make internal suggestions or what it intends to do. Like in terms of the managerial rules, that company has its rights, and that juristic rights basically of a company. So in terms of the corporate citizenship, that one focuses on the rights. So the company's right, what it can do, what it cannot do, and the responsible nature. And with the corporate social responsibility, basically is focusing that on the responsible nature. That is, companies taking it upon themselves to make sure that they safeguard the interest not only of the company but of the society in which they operate. Are we okay? So corporate citizenship is an integral part of a broader society which operates, affording the company and organization standing as a juristic person in the society with rights and also with responsibility, which I've already described. Now, at the aspect of the corporate social investment, that basically is just an aspect of corporate social responsibility. So it's just an aspect of corporate social responsibility under the corporate social investment. It forms under just a component section under corporate social responsibility. And basically that's focused on the contribution made to society, excluding contributions through core business activity. Are we okay? So in terms of these three terms, corporate social responsibility, corporate citizenship, and corporate social investment, which are basically used interchangeably, we've gotten to know the differences in these three. The first two, which is the citizenship, basically considers the rights. And the right, as we said, is a juristic right, what the company can do in terms of its internal decisions and how they can run their company. Is that has its own right. So we treat the company as a citizenship, and every individual has an human individual has each right and what the person is made to do to make sure that the person is better off. And every right also has a limit. So company has a citizenship right, and that is what we call the juristic rights, and it also has responsibility. That responsibility nature only is what we call the corporate social responsibility. And under corporate social responsibility, one aspect of it is the contribution made to society, which is called the corporate social investment. So we continue, and we are going to now analyze corporate social responsibility in terms of the contemporary business management. However, before we even continue with this discussion, one important book which is related to this concept was a book by John Eccleton. John Eccleton, he published a book titled Cannibals with Forks, the Triple Bottom Line of the 21st Century Businesses in 1998. This book is very, very important to this discussion. It tries to tell us if a company would want to assess its corporate social responsibility, then there's a three bottom line that a company must try to focus on. So, and every company has its agenda. Some try to focus on issues of prioritizing their staffs. Some focus on issues in terms of their wealth, in terms of the quality of their products, in terms of some also prioritize in terms of a green approach or in terms of environmental protection. Every company has its own things that they prioritize. However, with this book, in terms of the triple line, it talks about the fact that if a company need to, assess its health or strength, it should be measured. One, you have to look at your financial stance. Then you have to look at your social or ethical, and also your environmental performance. So the focus of corporate social responsibility in terms of contemporary world has basically moved so that in today's world, or in terms of this modern or contemporary world, when we are discussing corporate social responsibility, it basically needs to address issues that matters to employers, customers, and the community. In terms of the current discussion, the current discourse that needs to address these issues. There are a lot of issues going on in current world today, and those are where corporate social responsibility needs to focus our discussion on. So issues such as workplace harassment and inequality. Yes, workplace harassment and inequality, where we need to encourage women trying to get onto certain top positions are demanding, some bosses are demanding sexual favors. It's not only women that are are facing such, men too are facing such, just because the men tends to be silent on it. But it's, an issue that affects both sides. When somebody wants to get to a ladder, but it is women who have suffered on that section, on that part, mostly. It's issues of sexism, inequality. We pay men better than women. We pay so. These are issues that corporate social responsibilities needs to basically focus on, because they are major important issue, giving women chances to lead. So workplace in the harassment and inequality. You can also talk about diversity conversations. Diversity conversations. So a workforce, if you want to actually improve businesses today, you must know that a diverse workforce. And when we talk of diverse workforce, here we talk about the race, and we talk about cultures, different languages. All these things are current issues. So you need a diverse workforce, because each individual, each people with different background will have contribute to the company in a diverse ways, compared to a homogeneous kind of group, which basically will share similar characteristics. Once you'll be able to employ different background, different races, different languages, different cultures, you get to learn from all these, and that will be vital for a company. You can also talk about corporate activism, which is also important as a business entity. Aside, before we talk about all these social drivers, I'm just trying to put your mind to terms of some of the current issues that basically goes on. So as a business entity, corporate activism, once things are not going well in the environment you see yourself, you need to speak out. You speak about issues of corruption. You speak about issues of things. Sometimes you are trying to register your businesses, and people in government are trying to undermine the even in terms of registration, taking monies and all those things. As a corporate organization, that activism, you should be able to speak out to issues that affect the environment in which you also live. We can also talk about disaster recovery to climate resilience. So these are issues as a corporate entity. You remember in Cape Town, for example, we've had a water challenge. And when this water challenge happened, almost all corporate organizations, what they did was that they tried to engage in this efficiency use of water, where you are restricted to use certain limits of water in a day. So corporate organizations all engage in this activism, this agenda to safeguard the environment. So as a company and as a business entity, and you're not concerned with issues of climate change, because when there's a climate change, it affects productivity of agriculture. And when productivity of agriculture is basically what feeds industries, what feeds companies, what are the raw materials that are being made available for your business are going to be affected. So you need to be concerned with issues of environment or climate change. You should be concerned with them when there are shortage of water, because such scarcity can harm your business. You should also some of the current issues that we also tend to focus on is the higher standards for suppliers. Higher standards for suppliers. You can also talk about issues of prioritizing privacy and data protection. And this is one of the major issues in today's world, that you need to prioritize privacy. Just some few months ago, I believe you heard about WhatsApp trying to something about the WhatsApp. People were scared about the fact that their privacy is going to be infringed on or going to be exposed. And even in terms of Facebook, you realize that Mark Zuckerberg was brought to the House of the U.S. House of their parliament, more of their parliament alike, and they interrogated Mark Zuckerberg on issues of data and breaches, and these are issues of concern. So these are one of the latest issues of concern. So with this kind of issues, now we can go on to talk about the contemporary and business management. So in terms of contemporary business management, one of the major contemporary business management is the issue of social drivers. So how does social drivers make sure corporate organization becomes responsible. And then the social drivers here is that every company would not want to be in the bad lights. Like when people that are the citizen community sees this company as not being supportive, or they is not or not socially responsible, people can, tend not to patronize their commodities. And with such ideas or such consumers basically also prefer companies that basically are socially responsible, and the employees too should work with companies with the reputation of being socially responsible. So these are some drivers. So you people would want to buy goods from people that they think that, oh, if I buy this bottle of water from this company, in terms of its social responsible, the company is a responsible company. It report on the health conditions of taking this or not taking this. So it is indeed good for me to always consider this company. That goodwill, that social drive is able to make companies thrive. It's able to make companies thrive. Another drive in terms of corporate social responsibility is the government drivers. So here, government drivers, we can talk about issues where government enforces both local and the legal systems to make sure companies do comply in the country they reside in. And issues in terms of companies, you can talk about the labor relations, environmental management. All these are there to ensure that is the government's role in ensuring that companies become responsible. Some governments have even extended of establishing a whole unit or a whole ministry for corporate social responsibility. If you look at that of the UK government, however, we should know that the social responsibility nature of a company goes beyond just the laws and the things, but a company in terms of the letter of the law and the spirit of the law. So the letter of the law is when a company feels like, oh, there is a law for me to do this, that is why I'm doing it. But in the spirit of the law, the company, does not do it because he's obliged to, but does it because he believes that it is for it's not it's reasonably expected of him to further the objective. When he does it, he complies to this social responsible nature, or social become socially responsible to the community. It drives even the company further. We can also talk about the market drivers. Now, in terms of the market drivers, we should know that corporate social responsibility can be good or bad for a company. It has its own good. So if in terms of market, we want to avoid it affects the cost, of even the company. So if you want to avoid fines, that is one way you increase your cost as a business entity. So your market environment is also important. So you tend to avoid legal costs. If you are not concerned about the pollution, people can sue you if people tend to find out that maybe your commodity they consume is what affected their health, or the environment in which you are situating, the people's health are being affected. You can be sued, and that will come a cost to you. So in terms of how you use your resources efficiently, in terms of whether the alternative raw materials that are available, reducing recruitment costs, increasing staff retention, reducing the cost of capital. All these activities will tend to increase the cost to the tends to reduce the cost to that motive tends to reduce the cost to the company. And it can also help the companies raise revenue. Corporate social responsibility that's under the market drivers can help the company raise revenue. And that is when it's able to develop new products or services, growing market for services, and also improve access to markets. Because once you are socially responsible, it can, help you to gain more access to other markets, avoiding boycotts. People tend not to boycott your commodity because they are having that good board that you are responsible and you have their concerns and well-being at heart. Exploring the corporate social responsibility premium. Another last important driver in terms of the corporate social responsibility is ethics deciding whether the right is wrong or not. So there's the ethical drivers, and ethical drivers basically, when talk of ethics only, the ethics here basically concerned with whether something is right or wrong in terms of what you are doing. Then in terms of business ethics, which focuses on deciding between the right and wrong in the workplace and in the businesses in general. So business ethics basically considers the good, the bad, what right things should be done and what are the wrong things not to be done in the workplace and in the business environment. So ethic responsibility in doing business is very, very important. It's very, very important. It's very, very important. It applies also to responsibility businesses, dealings, and conduct in the workplace. That is one important thing about the ethical drivers. It's not just about right and wrong. So how do you do your business dealings? You don't do any shady or undercut kind of business, because all these are forms of ethical conduct in businesses. All these are forms of ethical conduct in businesses.